All right, welcome back to Introduction to Engineering Design. This is Module 8.1, and today what we're working on here is we are working on assembling the lower die subassembly B. We're going to base it on this first part, part number 201 right here, the bottom die plate, and notice that it has a distinct orientation. There's a number 1 and a number 2. We want it oriented this way in our model. So let's get started and keep this open on another screen or off to the side so you can see it. So I'll go File, New, Subassembly, New Assembly. Navigate to the file where my desktop file where I have put all my parts and start with part number 201. Open that, bring that into the model, and you'll notice the first thing I have to do is I have to rotate it about the x-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that once, twice, 3 times. Now it's facing up, however, the 1 and the 2 are transposed. So I'm going to rotate it around by clicking twice on the Y. Use the check mark to place it at the origin, and I'm going to go ahead and insert the item 3 and item 2, which is the part number 105. And I'm also going to insert the sequence lever arm, which is part number 203. The sequence lever arm, you'll notice that that rod, it goes in so that the round side faces up. Cosmetic threads don't appear on this particular part. I didn't make it that way. But it's going to basically seat down in the hole that's located by the numbers. So let's go ahead and mate that, but let's make some copies of it. So to make a copy again, I click on the part in the design tree. You'll notice that it highlights blue, and then I hold my control key down and I drag a second copy. Conversely, I could pick on the part out in the assembly, and then go back to my design tree, hold the control key down, and drag another copy in. Let's do our mates. First mate, I'm going to do a concentric mate to put this down into the shaft. Lock the rotation. Accept it. Do a second one here. Lock my rotation. Accept it. And now what I'm going to do is align the bottom of this stud into the bottom of my model. Pull this one up so I can see the bottom of it. Same thing on the opposing side. And accept that. Let's go ahead and align our bolts onto the shaft. Lock rotation. And what I'm going to do is choose a face on the lower side of the bolt here. This face right here. And I'm going to put that in contact with the surface. And accept it. And that should fully define it. Alright, I have one of these that is not locked, so let me lock that. I guess I forgot to do that, and I'm fully defined. So now looking at my assembly instructions, I've got the 2 shafts in, so let's start just working up from the bottom, and I'm going to put these 2 bolts in, number 8, which is 208, so we'll start by inserting those. Make a copy again of that bolt. Mate that bolt. I'm going to mate it up through the bottom. Let me roll my model around here a little better. And I'm going to mate that through that shaft. Obviously you want to reverse that. Accept it. And I should lock rotation on that mate. I'm going to make the bottom of this bolt flush. And that's approximately the right location. Same thing with this bolt. So we could have copied these with mates if we chose to. I've got my 2 bolts sticking up through the bottom. Next, let me put in this small bolt in the middle, and that bolt has a washer associated with it. Goes into the middle hole there. So 5 and 4, which is 205 and 206 are the part numbers. And sorry, I grabbed the wrong thing there. It's actually 204 and 205, not 205 and 206. Okay, so same mates, concentric mate. I'm going to put it on the washer first. Don't really care about the orientation. And concentric, that wasn't the best mate that I've done. Washer face against the bolt face. Select it. I need to come back and lock rotation on that first concentric mate. Now I'm going to put the bolt shaft through the small hole. Flip it, lock the rotation, accept it, and I'm going to align the washer face to the material face. Accept it. All right. Not sure why it's underdefined, but we're going to leave that for now. All right, next up, let's go ahead and put in our dies in the associated springs. There's 2 different springs, I believe. There's 2 different spring models that were provided. So let's go ahead and insert part 13 from the diagram, which is part number 213, and part 12, the 2 springs, part 212. So inserting the components, browse, and it's number 2 and number 1 are for the dies. There is a typo in the instructions, which I'll point out here in a little bit. So 212 and 213, again, I'm going to select both of them, drop them into the model. And 212 is the die spring 1, so I'm going to go ahead and place that first. Now for these, what you're really going to want to do, because it has a circle, it's a hard to define circle. We want to make it concentric with this bolt shaft. So what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to turn on and view my temporary axes. You'll notice there's an axis that runs through the middle of this. This being this top one being number 1. It's going to go on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the axes, and I'm going to mate that so that it is concentric with the shaft. And then I can lock the rotation on it. I don't really care about the orientation. Same thing, choose the axis of number 2, the shaft of number 2. Lock my rotation. All right, much better. So you'll notice I can still move these up in the air, and what I'm going to look at is the flat bottom of them, and then I'm going to mate the flat bottom to the surface. So I'll choose the bottom flat here and mate that to the surface. and the bottom flat down to the surface. And there we're mated. All right, at this point, we're going to take a break, and we'll do this in two videos here. We'll start up our next video where we left off. So this is the end of part 1 for this lower base assembly. Just as a preview, what we're going to do next is in the lower die subassembly, we're going to put in the spacer, the number 1, number 2 outer rings, and then the number 1 and the number 2 dies on top. And then that will finish this part off. Thanks for watching.